Hannah, I'm going to make you think of a story. I'm going to give some bullet point definitions. Does that sound good?
Story of a missional.
Yes. So, while she's just picking the one she wants to do. So basically, this is about how do we go with the gospel. So how do we go and make help make disciples of Jesus amongst friends, neighbours, colleagues, family members who don't yet know Jesus, but we would love them to come to Jesus. And here's the deal: however much we say come to our church, come to our service, they're not coming. Okay, it's not on their radar at the moment. So we've got to work out how do we go to them, and how do we help them become disciples of Jesus in that place, which means we operate like missionaries. We go there. So one of the tools that we found helpful is this thing called missional communities, which are, as the name suggests, it's a community of people on a common mission to a specific neighborhood or network of relationships. The way it looks like is it's so I'll just define it for you. So it's so you share a common mission vision, we call it. The phrase is mission vision, and that's going to be to either a neighborhood or a network of relationships. So it tends to be a mixture of both, but a neighborhood might be the people who live near us, or in reality it tends to be often people in a similar life stage. A network might be the people I play soccer with, or the other families who've got children in the band at school, or the people who I know who are empty nesters, or kids on a college campus, or whatever it is. So that's the starting place. It tends to be 20 to 40 plus people. That's adults and kids. That's where you end up. You don't start there normally, but that's where you're seeking to grow it to. Somewhere in the high teens, 20s is where most groups end up. And the reason you're doing that is you're trying to create an extended family kind of feel. So it's bigger than a small group. It's the next scale up. So you get to know everyone's name, you get to know a bit about who people are, but you can invite people into this gang, this tribe. It's like being part of an orchestra. It's like being part of a big team. It's a mid-sized gathering. The goal is it's all about disciple making. So if you want to have an outcome, the outcome is that we make disciple-making disciples of Jesus. That's the goal. Obviously, I should have said actually before this, probably should start at the beginning, say it's centered around Jesus. So you have this, so obviously it's a Jesus-centered community. Now, not everyone is going to be a Christian, just to be clear, and that's good. So we want people in this group. So it's different to how many of the church groups you will have been a part of. Not everyone's going to be saved. Not everyone's going to be a Christian. People are going to cut, but that's great because we're trying to work out how to do church in your neighborhood, or how to do church with the band families or the soccer families or whatever it is. And well, what does church need to look like to reach these people? Now, the content of the gospel doesn't change. We're not changing the Bible, but the expression of it will change according to the culture and the context where you find yourself. Hannah, why don't you tell a story that will help illustrate it for people who like narrative?
Okay, I'm trying to think which story should I tell? We've got so many stories. I quite like the one from our previous church actually. There was a bunch of women who are probably mostly in their 60s, and they are retired, they're full-time at home, they've got lots of time on their hands, they've still got energy, and they want to serve other people. So they're in touch through church with some younger mums, and then some of their friends and they call themselves fairy godmothers. And basically their whole aim was to help younger women with their children. There was one woman who was going through a divorce and hugely struggling, and so one of the fairy godmothers particularly came alongside her and helped her navigate the childcare, the practicalities, but also the emotional support of going through a divorce. And then so they did lots of things with these younger women. But then I think the husbands of the fairy godmothers said, okay, well, what are we going to do? So they formed, it was a very informal, it wasn't a proper group, but they just said, if any of these women need help with practical chores, you know, their toilet breaks and they can't afford a plumber, the dads would, or the grandpas would go in and help. But that was quite a fun way of these women who had all this time on their hands of going supporting these younger women.
Love it. Okay, what questions do you have for Hannah? Tell you what we'll do. What we'll do is we'll write a few questions up, and then we'll kind of pick the order. Just actually, before we ask that, does this make sense to anyone? Anyone need to clarify anything here? There's obviously lots more we can say, but we're trying to give you the succinct, because many of you have heard us up to now. But
the fairy godmothers.
yeah,
Right, yes. Yeah.
it is. It's that sort of idea. Exactly.
So I think she just said it. However, for those of you over there, you guys use your outside voice, will you?
Now they're at the mass. When you talk, just do this. We can hear you, especially if you're saying a lot of good things to say.
I'm just giving you a bad time. Sorry about that. So, yeah. And I may repeat what she said, but what I love about that is it's the older women mentoring the younger women and showing them the lifestyle, a good quality lifestyle, the patterns that they could follow. And I think that one thing that Alan and Matt and their group are doing is doing that with school age, junior high and high school kids, and something like that, just mentoring the younger generation. I think that's really good about it, and that's what I really like about that. So it's not really a question, it's more of a comment.
That's good. I'm going to draw you something, which is another way of describing what happens. So I'm going to take it a step further. This might be useful. So we're going to draw this as, I'm going to draw you a house. And we're going to put a fence around this yard as well. So let's draw it like this. We'll try and make it three-dimensional. There we go. There we go. So here's a house. So I'm going to give you 5 things that we see in missional communities that help them work well. So the first thing we're going to do is actually, we're going to draw on this is actually I'll draw it as a dotted thing. We're going to put on the foundations. So every house has foundations. These are under the ground. But the foundation of a good missional community is its mission vision. In other words, what we have found is if I was going to pick one thing above all else that's the secret sauce, is you know who you're trying to reach. So you can define it succinctly and clearly. Who do you want to reach? So I'd almost throw it as a question to you. Who would you love to see come to know Jesus? So someone local or a group of people locally. And here's the thing, there is no wrong answer. It could be anything like. So some of you might say, so Doug might be skateboarding teenagers. Someone else, it might be homeless men, or men who struggle with, health issues or perhaps addiction issues. Someone else might be saying, I've got a heart for the millionaires, the multi-millionaires who live in the big houses. Someone else might say, I've got a desire to reach the families at a local elementary school. Every answer's good. It's all good, okay? There's no hierarchy in this. But who do you want to reach? And this is critical, because if you know who you want to reach, all the other decisions will be defined by that. So, for example, if you're going to be able to decide, when do we gather? Where do we gather? What type of food do we have? What's the music like? What would be served things we could do together? So to apply that specifically, say someone wants to reach, all right, you're going to reach a group of, you've suddenly discovered you've got a massive passion for hip hop fans who live downtown Fremont, and they're super cool and young and hip, all right? And then we've got, you suddenly said you've got a great passion to reach, what we're going to say, people who live in a residential retirement community. Okay, so let's try that one. And you are suddenly going to reach people who've got preschool children. All right, so let me ask a question. When's the gathering with 20-something-year-old hip-hop artists? What time are you going to meet?
1 a.m.
1 a.m. What time are your residential retirement community going to meet?
Probably in the morning.
Probably in the morning.
Breakfast or something.
Breakfast, okay. What about your young families with preschool kids? Noon, you think? Okay. In the day? All right.
Doug's group and Alan's group can actually meet at the same time, because when they're getting up to meet, they're coming.
So it's like that. What type of food are you going to do? If you do food,
Jack in the Box.
Jack.
Taco Bell.
All right. So anything fast foody. What about your lot?
Anything soft and digestible.
Very good. What about your group? Exactly. Finger food, things that are easy to clean up. What's the music going to be? That's an easy one for yours.
Whatever they like.
Yeah, hip hop. What's your music going to be?
Everybody knows what that is.
No.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be old
Very Como.
Perry Como. And if you wanted to do worship, what would you do?
Probably hymns and
Yeah, exactly. You would. You'd
choir music.
choir music, hymns, and that would work, wouldn't it? That would be the right thing. What would you do with the young families? If others can join in as well. What about the preschoolers? What does music and worship start to look like? Okay, someone help. What would you do if you had a group with preschool kids? What would be the music? VBS music, that's good, yeah. Action songs. What were you going to say? Jesus culture, maybe, yeah. Veggie Tales, someone said. So we could go through lots of categories. Can you see that that's why your mission vision is important? Because if you don't know who you're trying to reach, what you do won't work necessarily. Yeah, is that clear for everyone? So you need to build upon your mission vision. Who do you want to reach? The window it's the group size, so it's going to, I'd say 20 to 40 plus. You start lower than that, but what you're trying to do is to grow into that high teens, 20s, 30s in number, so it feels like this bigger gathering. The reason we say that size works, there's a bunch of reasons. One reason that's really important is, imagine this, you've got a next door neighbour who doesn't know Jesus, or a friend of yours doesn't know Jesus, but you've been talking and you've been able to perhaps pray for them about something, and they're getting a bit more open, and you say to them, hey, there's a group of us get together and we're followers of Jesus, we're trying to learn how to do life, it's crazy right now, I think you'd like them, why don't you come? And they go, well, I'm not a Christian. You say, that's fine, not everyone there's a Christian. And they say, well, I swear too much. You go, it's fine, just come as you are. And they go, all right, I'll come. And you say, well, on Friday we're doing a social, why don't you come to the social? And they go, okay, I'd love that. Okay, here's the question for you all. Which is easier for your non-Christian friend to come to? A dinner party of 6 people, or a backyard grill out of 25 people, 25, 30 people, ignoring coronavirus for a minute, all right? So which is the easier thing for them to come to, the dinner party of 6 or the backyard grill out? Yeah, every time. Now there's a load of sociology I could give you behind this, but essentially people intuitively know that the social dynamics that control the gathering of 25, 30 people are very different to a dinner party. So in a small thing, basically it's a group of under 12, what you do is the thing that glues you together is you share private thoughts and feelings. In a mid-sized group that gets into the 20s or 30s, and what glues you together is you share snapshots of what it would be like to know you more closely. So that's what works there. So you wouldn't in a group of 25 stand up and confess your secret sins. And it's good you need to have a place where you confess your sins, but in a group of 25 there's too many people, it would feel inappropriate. Whereas in a group of, if you met with your one or two other people, that would be an appropriate place to do so. Does that make sense? So scale is everything. So what we've found is that this scale is the easiest size to grow. We've actually found that a much easier size to grow that group, to invite your friends in. Funnily enough, actually, it's the easiest size to do community, because one of the phrases we have is it's large enough to dare, but small enough to care. And so we've seen again and again that size is a place where you can fold people in. You can have the slightly uncomfortable characters, and they can be there, but they don't dominate proceedings, because you're always going to have some weird people like that. But it feels like a bigger. When I say the extended family or the gang or the, if you've ever had an experience of being part of a mid-sized group, you know what I mean by this. And people can come and they can belong and they can be as they are, and the group works really well. So there's something about that group dynamic that's really rich. The third piece I'm going to draw on this whiteboard is a missional community does a mixture of up, in, and out. Up, in, and out represent the 3 dimensions of relationships in life. So we have relationships upwards to God, in with one another, with our close relationships and with the community of faith, and out to the wider world as we declare and we demonstrate the message of the kingdom that Jesus gives to us. And so what we find is that a healthy missional community does all 3 of these. Now, you don't do everything every time you gather because you'll be exhausted, but over a period of a few months, there's just a nice rhythm where you do some up stuff that's, you're reading the Bible together and you're doing creative ways to worship God. The in is particularly where you eat together and you one another. So we care and we love and we encourage one another. We support each other along as we go through life. And then the out dimension is we talk about Jesus and we demonstrate about Jesus through serving and through being naturally supernatural, like we pray for the sick and so on. So we look outwards to the world like that. So we do that nice rhythm and balance of up, in, out. And every group will do it a bit differently. Every group will have a slightly different pattern, but you need to see all 3 of these things at play. So that's the third area. The fourth thing is the front door. And the front doorway into a group is a little phrase we use, which some of you have heard us talk about, which is you look for your person of peace. A person of peace. So just very, very succinctly, this is a principle that you see Jesus talk about in Luke chapter 10, where he sends out the 72 and he says, you're going to be carrying my peace, my making of all things right, making of things whole with you. And as you go out, you're looking for the lost people who don't yet know Jesus, who are open to the peace that Jesus brings. And basically what that looks like is a person of peace is someone who welcomes you. They're not yet a Christian, they welcome you, and they receive Jesus in you. In other words, they like the fact that you're a spiritual person. So it's not just they like that, they're nice to you, it's more than that. They like the fact that you're a spiritual person. That's something they find intriguing. They're open to spiritual conversations. When you talk about Jesus, they don't go, but they are instead, or they don't change the subject. Instead, they quite often will engage with you, and you have you'll talk, and maybe sometimes you get to pray with them, or It's things like that. Also, a person of peace is someone who will often serve you. It's one of the identifying characteristics Jesus says, and we've seen that again and again. In other words, there's a mutual relationship. It's give and take on both sides. And what Jesus says we're to do is we're to intentionally invest into them. So what we often do as Christians is we do scattergun evangelism. So we do something, downtown with some random people downtown, and then in a few months later we do something over here, and then we do something perhaps down at the, I don't know, wherever, at a school or something. And that's fine, but it's scattergun. The way people come to faith is through intentional relationships. In other words, you invest in their lives. So I can see, I don't know what age, how old are you? 14, right, perfect. So you're at high school yet? Yeah, high school. So at high school, the way you're going to make a difference for Jesus over the next 4 years is through the relationships that you build. And so you're a missionary to your high school. I don't know if you know that. I know it's weird right now with Corona. But you're a missionary. Jesus has sent you there. And so what that means is you get to represent Jesus at high school. But the way that's going to advance, where that's going to happen, is as you build depth of relationships. You'll have a group that evolves and changes over time, but you're going to get to know some kids really well, and they're going to be watching you. They're going to see the difference that Jesus makes in your life, and some of them are going to be open to spiritual conversations with you. Some are not. And that doesn't mean you're mean to them, but you're just going to get that chance to invest into some who are open. I'm picking on you, sorry. But we've got three sons as well who are just a tiny bit older than you. They just finished the high school phase, so I really, you're at an exciting, important time. And Jesus sends us into these places, whether it's high school or work or your neighborhood or your extended family or whatever it is. And you as well, by the way. So he sends us all to these places. But what he says is focus in. Don't just always go broad, focus in. And then the final piece of a good missional community, I'll write it here, is you have, I'll put the word above here, sustainable rhythms. By which I mean, you're going to gather on a regular basis, but you're going to do it in a way that feels sustainable over the long run. So typically for us, we would do a gathering every couple of weeks probably. And then, so that's where we'll gather in a home, we'll eat together, we'll tell story, what's God been doing in your lives. We'll read the Bible a bit as a group, and we've got some tools for that. We might do some creative worship. So it could be as simple as just going around the table sharing Thanksgivings, something like that. We'll perhaps break into small subsets of 3, 4, 5 people, single sex, to talk about perhaps the Bible passage we're looking at and to pray for one another. And then, so we're doing that every couple of weeks. And in the in-between times, we might be out doing some evangelism. You might do a surf project. You might just be, you're seeing people informally in 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. Socially, getting to know your neighbours. So you have this nice rhythm, but it needs to be sustainable because these are long-term groups like that. So that's what a typical missional community looks like. So there's kind of 5 areas that are a way of describing how missional communities operate. All right, now you get to ask your questions. Big, small, difficult.
I have several. First of all, you said when you were talking about inviting them, first of all you said
You're going to have to speak loudly because I can barely hear you.
when you talked about inviting that person, they said, I'm not a Christian. What did you say to them? How did you invite them?
Yeah, so do you want to do that?
So it really varies as to what the group is. So so it depends.
Give the words. What would you say?
So you'd probably say something like, we're a group, or we're going to start a group, and it's investing in young families. It's just a whole group of young families, and we want to have fun together, eat together, support each other, but we also want to learn from Jesus about how to raise kids. So would you be interested in joining us? We'll just meet every other week or something, or we'll do a social this week and then we'll do something a bit more formal next week, or whatever it is. And so it's community, but it's also learning spiritually as well, and being spiritual.
Invite someone and let them know it's different. Talking about the Bible, right?
So are you saying if the group is already going, or if you're if
No,
you,
I guess start or
Both ends.
stay long.
Okay.
It said something about
Yeah. All right, Hannah. How would you invite someone to a group that's a neighbourhood group?
So if I've got a group in my neighbourhood, what I would be doing is I'd say, hey, a few of us are gathering. We are meeting every other week on a Sunday night or whenever it is. We eat together, we have fun and socialise together, but we also do a little Bible study together. We learn from Jesus, we share Thanksgivings, and just give them a little snapshot as to what goes on. Just say, hey, we'd love you to join us. You'd be more than welcome to join us, and whether it's they come straight into that one or whether it's a social thing that you're inviting, what's going to be the easiest on-ramp to? So is it your more formal gathering, or is it just a social gathering, in which case you could say there's a group, we meet together, we learn from Jesus together, but this week we're just having a social, come join us. People would love to see you. Or if you think an easier on-ramp would be when you're doing a serve activity, you might say, hey, a group of us who do this little home church together or whatever, we this week are going and taking food to the homeless or whatever. We'd love you to join us if that's something that you're interested in. And just so different things appeal to different people, but it's being open and invitational, but no pressure. But just saying, hey, we'd love to join you. We'd love you to join us, and it's also, if you're going to be doing anything spiritual, they need to know. So you can't do the bait and switch. You can't say, hey, it's just a social, and then you're doing this Bible study. You've got to tell them exactly what it is.
How would you invite someone, say you're starting a group or you're running a group that's reaching high school students? So how would you invite, if you're a high schoolers and you start,
So if you're at high school and wanting to invite other high schoolers?
Yeah, you'd want to start to reach some of your high school friends.
So hopefully there's some fun stuff that is going on here. So I mean, our kids have been involved in some really great high school stuff. And so sometimes it's, hey, we're having a big sleepover this time, or there's going to be this event at the church, it's going to be loads of games, but there's also going to be like a 10-minute talk or whatever it is on about how we follow Jesus or something. But it's whatever that hook is going to be. There's going to be a whole load of fun other kids there. We'd love you to come. It's a great time. Be some great food there, whatever it is, whatever's going to hook them in. But again, you have to tell them, if there's going to be some sort of talk or presentation, you have to tell them that that's going to be going on too.
How do you reach people who are, you want to reach people who are car enthusiasts? So car enthusiasts, and there's a bunch of them that get together, they go to the car showing events, yeah, is that right? Kind of?
That was Ted.
Oh, that was Ted.
Yeah.
That's right, yes.
Ted here.
Yeah, he's not here, but okay. So,
And is there anything spiritual that goes on?
Yeah, they're saying, hey, we're car enthusiasts, and also we get together sometimes and we learn, we're just learning how to follow Jesus.
So if it was something like that, or something about focused on a specific topic, you'd probably say, hey, if you love cars, then come join us. There's a whole group of us. We've got all these cars that we're going to be looking at, comparing, whatever the lingo is. I'm not into cars, so I don't know. But so I'm making this up as I go along. And then you might say, in terms of the spiritual piece, a few of us stay behind afterwards and do this Bible study. We would love you to join whatever you feel comfortable. If it's just the car bit, great. If it's the Bible study, if it's all of it, we're just a group of people. We're just trying to figure out life and how to do it and follow Jesus in the middle of it. So it's very invitational, and
what if you're running a men's group and the men are serving the homeless or the urban poor? How do you invite someone into that?
So we've got a real heart for the homeless, for the urban poor. We would love you to come help us with that. Tell some of the stories of things that are happening. But then say, as part of that, we pray for them or with them, or we do a little Bible study. So give them a little snapshot as to what it is, but you want to sell them and invite them and tell them maybe some good stories of things that are happening.
Does that make sense for people? Trying to role play? Well done, Hannah, yes.
Done it a few times.
Have you ever, you don't speak much. No,
Yep. Yep. I think people who are from other faiths are actually often quite open because they're used to spiritual conversation.
So when we were in England, there was a very successful, our church had a really successful sort of preschool ministry, and we did in England, toddler groups are all the rage, and it would be in the church building actually, and all the parents or nannies would come with the kids, and there's loads of the snacks, and then there's loads of toys everywhere. And so we would do that as a great outreach for the community, but we would do a Christian version where we would read a Bible story and we would sing little kiddie, action songs or whatever. And so I've got a Muslim friend in England, and I just said to her, hey, there's this great toddler group, because she doesn't work, she's got a toddler, same age as my toddler. She's thinking, help, I need something to do. It's raining outside, it's England, we need to go somewhere. So I say, hey, there's this fun thing, there's great people who are coming. We, as part of it, have a Bible story, we have a craft, we have some little, fun action songs. We'd love you to come. Do you want to come with me when I go next week? She said, sure. So, and she was very open, because even though she didn't believe the same stuff, we had lots of spiritual conversations. And her comment to me was, I understood her more than a lot of people, because even though the faith isn't the same, they're open in a different way to a lot of other people.
Okay, other questions or?
So what's your experience when you're trying to develop a mission community, and you know your target audience, you know your mission statement, and you're going out and you're talking to people who you feel would be a good fit for this, right? And they decide, no, I'm not interested in that. There's got, first of all, of course you pray that God leads you to the right people. But what's the process? And I'm sure that you guys, in your experience, have seen people that you feel would be a perfect fit for this group, and they say, no, I'm not interested.
I think I view it as the parable of the sower, where you just sow the seed generously. So, if I'm running a group, a missional community, I'll invite lots of people. Feel free to invite people. And if they say no, that's not on me. And it might be it's not the right group for them. It's fine. Or it might be it's not the right timing. Or it might be they're ignoring what God's saying. But none of that's on me.
A different one I had, so for our home church that we're doing, my next door neighbour, she and I are always walking, we have lots and lots of spiritual conversations. She says she's a Christian, she used to go to our old church, but she goes nowhere and hasn't done for years. But when I told her that we were starting this home church, it was for neighbours and all sorts, she said, I'm really interested. She was, tell me when it is, I really want to come, da 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 da. We came to the first one, she said, great, I'm coming. And then I don't know if she dropped out, but anyway, she never came. And the next time, she always came up with an excuse. And it was, in some ways disappointing, but it's one of those things. We still walk, we still have amazing conversations. Occasionally we're doing some different event, like a serve opportunity or whatever. And I'll just mention it in passing. I'm not forcing anything, but I'll mention things in passing. And she's been to a couple of things which have been more socially. So who knows whether she will ever come. But this is where, we are the ones who are faithful, and we just throw the seed out, and it's the Lord who does it. So.
Good question. Thank you. Yeah, so it depends. So it depends on how large you are when you begin. And what I mean by that is, it might be you get some other Christians to join you. So maybe, do you have something in mind? Yeah, no, it's just helping you think it through. So let's just say you said, I want to reach some other families in our neighborhood, all right? So what you might do then is think, are there one or two other Christian families that we know who are either really good friends with us or live locally, and you can say to them, hey, this is what the vision is, we'd love to do this, would you help us? Could we partner together in reaching some of the other families in our neighborhood? And you might find a few people will come and help you do that. And so suddenly maybe there's 8 or 10 or 12 of you who are already Christians, and then you would start to think, you might then do some social events, draw some neighbors in, build relationships, help your Christian friends get to know all the other lost people. Then you might do some standalone gatherings which have a spiritual nature to them. So for instance, you might do at Thanksgiving this year, you might put the word out in your neighborhood and say, hey, some of us are going to get together on at Thanksgiving on the Thursday morning. We're going to have a 15-minute time to pray and give thanks to God for this year on our front lawn or in front of our apartment block or wherever it is you live in. Some open space. Anyone can come and just see who comes to that. But you try to, or you do a Christmas event which has some spiritual nature to it. And like Hannah says, you always make clear what's happening. And then you might be able to start, you're seeing who's spiritually open. And you're also starting to invite people into your gathering that you're starting to do with some of these other Christian families. And you invite them in. But I think if you've got some good existing relationships with some people who are lost, who don't yet know Jesus, or used to go to church but don't anymore, you can start it quite quickly. If you're in a situation where it's just you and everyone is miles away from Jesus, it's going to take longer. It can take. So it depends on who it is you're reaching and if you've got a team with you.
So it depends. If it's a car enthusiast type thing, that's a much more niche thing, and it's probably only going to be one member of the house that you're going to be adding in ones. So that's probably going to take a longer time to grow. Some of the most favourable groups have been like young family groups, because often it's the whole family, or say the mum and the kids, sometimes the dad or the nanny and the kids. And so you're adding in 2, 3, 4s, 5s at a time, and those people tend to, depending if the parents are working or not, sometimes they've got more
You
time.
could do
or
Sunday
more,
afternoon,
they're
that
more
sort of time.
desperate for community, they're more up, so they're the ones we've seen grow really quite quickly. So like with the toddler group thing I was saying, and it came from a big pool of this toddler group that then went to a Christian toddler group. So you already had a pool of like 60 people to pull from. So immediately you had like 25 people from the get-go.
Another example might be, say, I'll pick on you again, you're my willing victim today. So say your son do you like sport or music? Music? Yeah? Well, let's just say you join the band at high school, just for argument. And you get to know the band members, and you're going to some of the band events, and you get to know the other band families, and you might feel, hey, maybe Jesus is calling us to reach the other band members and their families. Well, because you're already in relationship with lots of the other families, you've got like Hannah says, you've got a pool of people you can reach into. You start to say, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we got together to build closer relationships and to pray for our kids, to pray for our families, and just ask God to help us parent better. And you might find, because you've got a relationship, quite a lot of those families will say, yes, we'll come and do that. So I think there isn't one answer to your question. It's a good question. So partly it depends on who is with you and what your context is and how developed those relationships are. Does that make sense? It's a good question.
So let's say you have a group going already, because we've been kind of talking about how to start one. And you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of close neighborhood friends that we always hang out, especially during this time. We've been social bubbling with them for a lot, and we've gotten very close. We meet like 2 or 3 times a week to have dinner, and the kids are playing together. And so I'm very fortunate because they know Eugenia works at the church. They know she runs Vacation Bible School. They've signed up their kids before. They know that I help out with the church. They know about the tutoring thing that we're doing. They want to be involved. So they're very respectful, like you said, about the Christian ethos, right? Now, I'm of the philosophy that I've never tried to come across impose, because I remember before I was a believer, the thing that I hated the most was the sales pitch, right? I did not want to be sales pitched to. Even if I wanted to have that conversation, I wanted to do it on my own timing and not because someone pressured me to go to church to hear a message. So I'm very careful, because to them, I just want to be like a normal guy, a normal person. I want to build the equity and build the trust so that we can have meaningful relationship down the road. I just don't know how long down the road that is, right? Do you keep waiting patiently for something to come up where you can drop a spiritual nugget here and there? Or is there an actual definitive window or tactic that you guys can recognize or observe that it's been long enough, I have enough trust where I can actually, maybe not the word impose, but start to, insert more objectively?
I think a couple of tactics that I would do. I think one of the easiest things to slightly test the waters is, can I pray for you things? So as and when things come up in people's lives, so somebody loses a job, or they have a child, or they move home, or they're stressed, or whatever, to say, hey, whether it's I've struggled with that and I've found that as I've prayed, I've found peace about it. Or, so you've got to develop exactly what's your language going to be that's true for you and authentic and would go down well with them. Or it could be something like, you're starting this new job, I'd love to pray blessing over that for you. Would that be okay? And can we do that right now? And so that's a bit bold and a bit out there, but you've probably got enough relational capital to be able to do that. And if they say no problem, and you still love them, you say no problem, that's absolutely fine. So you're not dissing them, you're not pushing anything down their throat, but immediately then you're going to get a gauge: are they spiritually open or are they not? And as you do that with different people, you'll get a feel for, okay, how spiritually open these people are. Another way you could go about it is by organising a one-off event, which is a bit more spiritual in nature. So we did this in Oklahoma. It went down well in that culture. I don't know whether it would go down in this culture, but we did a birthday party for Jesus at Christmas time, because we were with lots of kids, and I was a bit dubious at first, but other people said that would work, and we tried it and it was a phenomenal success. But it's working out what is that equivalent. So at the start of school, what we've done before is we've gathered families and said we'd love to pray for kids and teachers as they start school, and everybody's been really open to that, because even if they don't believe in prayer, and people who aren't Christians have prayed because they're just so desperate for their kids to be okay at school. Or I can't remember of other examples.
We did it around coronavirus. Prayer on the front
We've
door.
done various things. I mean, at Easter this year, we just said, hey, anybody who wants to come and we're just going to pray about coronavirus. We're going to pray for our hospitals. We're going to pray for our medics. We're going to pray for our government. We're going to pray for... And so a few new people came to that sort of thing who'd never been before. We have done... it could be like, you pack the Christmas shoe boxes, the Operation of Christmas Child thing, and as you're doing that, you just pray over the boxes for all the kids who they're going to receive. So you think, okay, what is a one-off event? See how it goes. And if it's, then you think, okay, people aren't ready. But if people go, ooh, that was really good, then you can think about doing something more.
I think I agree, very brilliant answer. I think one of the challenges for us as Christians is to be willing to be outed as a follower of Jesus. In other words, am I willing for my friends, my neighbours, my colleagues, whoever it is, friends at school, to know that I'm a Christian? Because I think our culture makes it quite, you feel tense about that, or anxious, or because we're thinking, I don't want, look, you described it, I don't want them to have a bad experience, or to think I'm strange, or I'm a religious nutcase, or something like that. And I think the way around that, the way past that, is not to withdraw the spiritual part of us, but instead what you do is you live out your faith in a way that feels very enticing and engaging.
And
So
authentic.
it's authentic, exactly. So being authentic is all important. So so one of the ways we would describe this is we would say treat your non-Christian friends the same way you treat your Christian friends. So don't have two worlds, my church friends and my unchurched friends. Instead, so like if one of you said, as we met you today, oh, I'm not feeling well, then as a follower of Jesus, we would say, hey, I'll pray for you for healing. Well, I would do the same thing with my non-Christian friends. And I might go, I wouldn't necessarily do it in front of the big group, but it might go, hey, this might sound strange, but I believe Jesus likes to heal sick people. Could I pray for you to feel better, or for this thing to be healed up? And we see God do lots of amazing stuff doing that sort of thing.
The thing is, if it's authentic and if people feel that you're doing it because you love them and you care for them, and it's not just Bible bashing, then I think people are really open. They might think, oh, that's different. Not quite sure, but I like that person. Okay, fine, whatever. So I think if it comes across as loving and authentic, I think you can get away with massive amounts of stuff.
I think I have the same concerns that Alan was raising too. Is, how do you introduce the gospel to people that maybe are far away or have been to church and had some bad experience? And so if there's a easy way for them to take the first steps, I was thinking, using your backyard barbecue example, if I'm hosting, maybe I just say, would you guys mind if before we ate, we just prayed over this meal?
Yeah.
And that, might be, I don't think anybody would feel offended or, be personally invaded if I were to do it.
Yeah.
But then, that kind of helps people to understand maybe what we're about. And I think I'm just trying to think of
So I think
first steps.
Yeah, so other first steps. So Hannah mentioned the can I pray for you? So once someone's going, I'm worried about coronavirus. So you can say wise words, or I read this New York Times article or something, but you can also say, hey, something I've found has really helped me just to my own peace of mind. I've been trying to pray more because I think God, I need his peace, his supernatural peace at a time like this. And see what they say. And if they're at all open up, okay, well, why don't we pray for that now, that you would experience that as well? And you just pray a short, like 20, 30-second prayer, non-religious language. See. It's amazing. People are really, really open to that sort of stuff. I think another pathway you could take would be, I had a really good idea.
The can I pray for you one, I think, is the easiest way to do this. Because it's in the moment, it's really authentic. I don't think we've had anybody refuse us.
Yeah.
And it's maybe a bit weird, but it's just done. It's not. Yeah.
I know what I think of. So I think definitely what Hannah said. As you're just having conversations with people, we talk about going through different gears of conversation. So the basic level of conversation is casual, where you go, oh, how's the weather? What do you do? Did you see the sports game last night? And we all do that stuff, that's fine. But then you go, the level beyond that is, second gear is meaningful, where you talk about deeper things, like how are your family doing during coronavirus? I see you seem to be really good at this job. What makes you so passionate about this job? Well, you're just having deeper conversations with people. What is it that's making you so stressed at the moment? You said you were really stressed. What's making life so stressful for you? So you ask the deeper question. And if they respond to that, then you start to move into the more spiritual conversations. And some of that is obviously, can I pray for you? It might be a conversation like, you say to someone, you might say, hey, are you a spiritual person? I'm quite spiritual, you know, I'm a follower of Jesus, but I was wondering what, you know, yeah. Or you might say, hey, tell me your spiritual journey. What's that been like? So you just have a few things like that where you just open up those types of conversations. Because once people start talking those conversations, you then got a doorway to have, you know, to go further.
Somebody said a good one the other day, which was, tell me your life story in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
So because most people love to talk about themselves, but I'm also thinking, particularly in Oklahoma, there were all those. So we had great favour with all the families in our neighbourhood. There were lots of guys in particular who'd grown up in the church, got very disaffected, burnt off, were no longer going to church. And yet at the end of our time, they all were hugely impacted faith-wise. What was it? What were the conversations that you had? How do you think you helped get into that place?
I think it's going back to being authentically spiritual. So for instance, one of the guys lost his job, and he was in pharmaceutical sales in a very specialised area, and he was unemployed for about 8-9 months, and towards the end, the last 3 or 4 months, there was one company looking at him, and took ages to get it happen. And somewhere along the way, I'd said to John, our neighbour, hey John, I'm praying for you that you will get a great job, that you really you love it more than the old job, and it pays better. And he kind of like, well, whatever, you know, because he wasn't a Christian. He was very cynical. Anyway, we were out walking in our neighbourhood, because again, be present in the place where you're on mission. And so we're walking the neighbourhood, and he sees us, and he charges down his driveway, and he starts shouting, I got it, I got the job. And we're about to do all the, hey, that's awesome, congratulations. And he interrupted me, and he just went up, and he pointed, like stuck his finger in my face, and he said, and I know it's because you prayed for me. And it was really striking. Here's a guy who's not a Christian, and yet basically the first thing he does when he gets his job is to give thanks to God. And I would propose that far more of your friends are spiritually open than you realise. They just don't have people to talk about it with. In a way that just feels very natural and real and grounded and not religiously yucky, but just feels authentic. And
So with Robin, so there's another next door but one neighbour
Yeah.
currently in Long Beach, and he is African American, married to a half Japanese wife who grew up Buddhist. But they're both fairly spiritually open, and you now have all sorts of faith conversations with him. And so how did that start? Was it prayer for healing?
Yeah.
So basically we were walking the dog one day, and we just met him on the sidewalk, and he just said, hey, we're travelling to Japan, I've got really bad back, I'm really worried about this trip. So Alex said, well, can I pray for you right now? And he's going, sure. So we stop on the side of the street right there, and Alex just puts his hand on his back saying, in Jesus' name, we ask for this back to be better, amen. And it's like super brief, nothing special. And the next morning he texts and says, Alex texts him and says, how's your back? And he said,
no, he texted me.
okay, and said, Alex, my back is better. But anyway, as a result of this, all sorts of stuff happens, and you get to a place where you feel it's okay to say, hey, if you ever want to read the Bible together or just have spiritual conversations, I'd be really open. And so you go to the pub every so often and go and have spiritual conversations.
Beer and the Bible.
And
Suffering
nothing
for Jesus.
happens, you know, I mean,
Well,
he is closer to Jesus.
He is a lot closer. Yeah, we have very spiritual conversations. So I think it's just be authentic in your spiritual faith and believe, just trust that the Holy Spirit will work through you. You're not Bible bashing, but it's the overflow of you being, so I'll pick on you. You're a spiritual man of God, and people like that about you. So probably far more of your non-Christian friends know that you're a Christian than you realise, and they like you. That's part of why they like you. So just let that be, like you accept them for who they are, they should accept you for who you are. So just let it overflow.
But I think what Hannah was saying about allowing people to share their life story is important, because they may like me, but they want to know that I like them too,
Yes.
and they're interested
Correct.
in their
Yeah.
salvation.
Yes.
So I think that gives you an opportunity to kind of gauge where they are on their journey, and at the same time, you know, if you have everybody do that, you have an opportunity to share your story too and what God has done in your life too. So I think that's very comes across as very real, non-threatening. You know, this is what God has done, you know, time and time again. And so that's another way of just sharing your faith in a very
Absolutely.
authentic way.
But I think the key is don't be reluctant to go to the spiritual conversation, because I think people are far more open than we realise.
Asking good questions is really good.
Yeah. We're going to stop soon. Anyone else got any last questions before we wrap up?
How long do these missional communities usually go on? You find that they have a natural shelf life?
Yeah, it's good.
Or
And they just keep going forever as long as you keep investing into it.
All of the above.
Yeah. So it partly depends upon the character and the nature of the leader. Partly depends on who you're reaching as well. So some groups,
Never truly get off the ground. They sort of happen for a couple of months and then they just fizzle out, which
Yeah.
is absolutely fine. And we need to celebrate those people for even trying.
yeah.
Don't see, oh, you failed, it's terrible.
And then you come back and you try a different iteration, and but probably the average is 3 or 4 years, and then at some point normally there'll have been some sort of shift that happens. So perhaps the group grows and multiplies, or maybe there's a change of leader, or it just has a natural end to it. And it depends on who you're reaching. Like if you're reaching, say, well, your high school group that you're going to start, that's got a natural shelf life because you're going to graduate high school. There's a limit to it, isn't there? Or again, if you're reaching young families, there's a season. You have seasons, and there'll be a certain point where they stop being young families and life situation changes a bit. So, but you get some other groups might go on for many, many years as well. So I think there's no one answer.
Part of the DNA of the group, though, is there some intentionality to sprout or germinate?
Yes.
The main.
Yeah, probably I should have written it in red there. It's multiplication from day one will be one of the visions. So we always said to our groups, hey, we think one day this group's going to multiply out, and God's going to get 1 or 2 of you to lead your own groups. And what we find is the non-Christians all go, oh yeah, all right. It's the Christians who get worried about it. The non-Christians, they don't know any better. They go, okay, fine, that's how it is. So we just cast that vision from early on. And your job, if you're leading one, is to think, who are the people you need to tap on the shoulder and go, hey, you need to be leading something. Let's try and, over the next year, let's plan for you to segue into that. And that's how you can do that.
I think it's better to co-lead those types of groups. The reason why is because, number one, you're not sharing the responsibility for the entire group, right? And it's better as if you have co-leaders, because then you can feed off of each other in terms of how to further develop the group. And then also, you may not necessarily be at every meeting.
Yes.
So it's good to have somebody else there who can actually it'll be like a smooth transition if you're not there.
So Dave, I would say that you want 2 to 4 people leading a missional community. You don't. I wouldn't let someone start one with just one person. I think you've got to have at least one other person leading it with you who's a Christian, because you get picked off. The minimum unit for mission in the kingdom is 2. Jesus sends the disciples out 2 by 2 or larger. So don't do it solo. You're too vulnerable spiritually to the enemy's attack. But neither do you want 12 people all saying we're leading this group together, because like the old joke that yeah, exactly. You never go anywhere. A camel is a horse designed by a committee. It's all that sort of stuff. So don't do that. And we all sit there. Let's vote on the vision. It's like, oh gosh, it's going to be terrible. Awful. Don't do that. So basically, the role of the leader, by the way, is it's not to do everything. Do not do everything. You want to get as many people as possible doing things. So who wants to lead the creative worship next week? Who wants to host? Who wants to do all that? Your role as the leader is basically you are the custodians of the mission vision. Again, back to that being the most important piece. So you're the one who says, hey, we're called, so 2, 3, 4 of you, you're the ones who decide we're reaching this neighbourhood, or we're reaching the band members, or whoever it is. And that might evolve over time, because sometimes things change. Sometimes the Lord takes you one way, then some other doorway opens up and you go, we're going to shift a bit in this direction. That's good, that's great, it's fine. But do not do that by vote. It's like the leaders say, this is the vision. And to the Christians, you're saying, who wants to follow into this mission field? And then it'll work, yeah. 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 I'll repeat that for those. So what does this look like during COVID? Yeah, very good question.
It is more difficult. So either you do it online, and you'll probably do a mixture, or depending, maybe you could do it in a park where you're all, you bring your own chairs and you're all socially distanced. Or sometimes what we've done is we've done guys in one backyard and girls in another backyard. Again, we're socially distanced, so it's whatever people feel comfortable with. You don't want to put anybody at ease. You want to put everybody at ease. So
we've been doing our group every week, and it's been mostly on Zoom. And what we've done is we've changed it, because obviously you can't do eating. We did one week where everyone bought a favourite snack and we all ate it together as it were online.
And we did another one in a park where everybody bought their own picnic.
Yeah, so you can do that, but what we've done instead of the food, because what food does is it builds relationships, it's fellowship, it's acceptance. So instead of that, this is accidental, we discovered this, but we do fun. So every week we do some sort of game. And because we've got all ages, we've got quite a few kids as well. So the kids love it, but actually the adults love it as well. So we might do a quiz, or we might do
go bring me your favourite object,
yeah.
or something that's going to make your spouse angry.
Yeah. Or who's first person to get back here with a tube of toothpaste? We do that, or we might do Pictionary all together. But it's fun, and so we actually do it at the end each time, because it builds life. So that was one of the things we changed. We found that on the online stuff, people are really hungry to tell stories of, like, here's what's going on in my life right now, because I think people feel quite lonely and isolated. So we gave a bit more space to that, and it's actually worked really well. I mean, we've had really high attendance to the online. Now, obviously, everyone's hungry for the physical. So, like Hannah says, you just have to gauge that according to what people feel is sensible. And I think, like she said, if you can subdivide, because it's easier to arrange a group of 5 people in an outdoor spot than it is 20. Does that make sense? I think we should pray for these good people. And you're more godly than me, so you should do the praying. I mean, if we're going to pray, you might as well get the power prayer.
I know, he's mean.
Come on,
So
woman.
mean.
You do the prayer.
So Lord, I want to thank you for every person here, and I thank you that we all love you. And I thank you that more than us loving you, you love us so incredibly much that you sent your son to die for each one of us. And not only us, but all our friends, all those people in our communities who don't yet know you. And Lord, we long to see those people come to know you, come into relationship with you, to come and receive fullness of life that they can have easily if only they would say yes to you. But part of that is us having the boldness to share you with them and to build relationship and be obedient to your promptings when you tell us to do or say something. So I pray that you would help and equip each one of us to know how to bring you, to bring the gospel, to bring your love to each of the people that you have put in our lives, and particularly our people of peace, the specific ones who you want us to invest in.
Yes, Lord.
So show us how we can do that. If you're calling us to start some sort of missional community, again, just show us each step that we need to be doing with that, because we long to see your light come more and more, shine more and more in Fremont. So we just say, Holy Spirit, come, just fill us, so that it's just coming so organically, so easily, just bubbling up through us and overflowing from us to those people around us. And I pray your blessing on each person here in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen. So we're going to obviously, continue doing these. We'll do other sessions online. We're going to continue to be involved, with FCC. Obviously, Roger's the point guy here. So don't feel like this is the last chance you get to interact with us. We want to be helping and serving. We've talked with the staff and the elders, and they know we just want to serve and help. So don't feel like you're stuck, or if other questions come up, reach out to them or to us directly, and we'll do our best to help you. But I would just say, to encourage you as we finish, which is just try some stuff. Just try. It's not going to be perfect, but often, it's like riding a bicycle or any skill. Sometimes you have to, at some point, you've got to take both your feet off the ground and start pedaling.
And that's how you learn, by a bit of trial and,
But you will get it, because it's not that difficult. It's not as difficult as we make it sound. So there we go.
You make it sound really easy.
It takes time. Sometimes I think you can think, oh, I'll do this and this will happen and they'll get saved and this community will form. Sometimes that happens, but often it takes a while, because it's relationships.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for being out on a Saturday as well. Thank you.